All right. We're here for episode 17 to Business Can Be Better, the podcast, episode 17. Does that seem like a lot?
Yes.
Does it?
Yes, 17. That's almost half a year.
That's true. Episode 17, we're going to talk about how to have challenging conversations. You texted me yesterday to suggest this as a topic. So why did this come up?
Well, I think in almost every coaching session I have with my clients, I have to have a challenging conversation. And I've gotten so used to them because I've been doing it. I've been in leadership for almost 20 years, and I've been studying, running, coaching businesses for 18 years. So whenever you work with people, you have to have conversations. And as a leader, you have to have sometimes challenging conversations. So in essence, I guess for my clients, I'm somewhat of a leader to them. So I have to tell them things like, you're not listening.
Right.
You have to listen.
So did something like
leader.
that come up that made you
all the time, like every day.
Okay.
And even one of my favorite couples, I have quite a few clients who are married, and one of my favorite couples was in today, and we're talking about a key person in their business who is very much cannot do versus can do, very excuse sort of oriented rather than just get it done.
Focused.
Yeah, she's not. So that conversation that I had with them was very similar to almost every other conversation I have with my clients, where they say, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to get this person to be more positive. I don't know.
Right.
And I say, talk to them. And they kind of look at me like, what? Yeah, just talk to them.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's hard for me to remember that challenging conversations are the norm for me. I step right into a conversation even if I feel nervous or scared, because I want to have the conversation. I want to get through to the other side. So, and I think you and I have a good friendship that way too, with the feedback on the over communicating. You remember that? I was thinking about that. But like with my husband, with my friends, Mandy, like if we have something challenging that most people, I think a lot of Canadians especially, we're so polite, right? We're always like, sorry, never mind. Being scared to hurt somebody's feelings or being scared to start a fight, like I'm desensitized to that stuff now because I'm not confrontational at all. I hate confrontation.
And not desensitized like it doesn't bother you anymore, but just that you're used to navigating
I'm just used to it. Yeah. So I have challenging conversations all the time, and actually I love, I guess, breakdowns or challenging conversations in my marriage, because I know that every single time we have one of those, there's a breakthrough on the other side, and it's awesome, and we're closer together.
Come out a step forward. Yeah. Maybe I jumped the gun. We haven't talked about just what's new. What's happening in your life?
Well, I told you I took a Benadryl, so you're going to have to lead this one.
I can't lead this.
This sweater, I don't know if anyone's watching, but this sweater, this beautiful sweater,
it's fuzzy,
is so itchy. It's just been driving me crazy all day, so I decided to take a Benadryl before I got here, and then I started talking to Lane, and I'm like, I don't feel quite as smart as usual, so Benadryl might be playing a role here.
And I am still carrying a little bit of my cough from last week, so I need you to carry it, because I'm going to
cough that way.
I will be. I'll be into my sweater and around the corner. But
so what is the question? What's new?
What's new is the question.
I wrote this down. Let me just.
You wrote down what's new?
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Saying no to say yes to myself. Oh, it feels so selfish. It feels so selfish to say no when somebody asks me to do something, but I really have to get used to it.
Yeah.
Because being sick or like fainting from exhaustion or like losing my voice or falling down the stairs and breaking my arm, all those things, all those reminders that I'm doing too much and trying to go too fast and never taking breaks, I don't want those things to happen to me anymore. So when somebody asks, can we just stay half an hour longer and talk about this other problem that we have?
Right.
I'm sorry, I have to say no. I need to get a few minute break between my now and my next meeting,
That's good.
Or it's especially hard to say no to my husband because he has these great big puppy dog eyes, and even if I come home after like 12 hours of work, he's sitting on the couch, I'm hungry, babe, and I'm like, oh, did you know there's like 100 meals in the freezer that I made you? But I don't feel like those. Okay, well, would you like me to make you something? Yeah, grilled cheese and soup. So then I'm like making a grilled cheese and soup, and all I want to do is be in my pajamas or get in the bath. So I am going to start saying no to you too, Tim, if you're watching. But I've started saying no to more things.
That's good.
I volunteer and donate a lot. I really do believe in all of the causes that I'm a part of. But if I said yes to everything that I was asked to do, I wouldn't have time to eat.
Well, and you won't be productive or very effective at any of them. You'd be spread too thin. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get better at saying no to say yes to myself.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That's good.
So sorry if anyone's watching and I said no to you, but I don't want to break my arm.
So you can serve them better at another time.
Yes.
Good.
What's new with you?
My sickness that I'm trying to get over.
Are your glasses still taped together?
They're not taped, but they do have a little bit of
Super
crazy
glue?
glue. A little bit of crazy glue
Lane.
here. I know.
Gotta
Maybe
get
I
you
need
a
to say
raise.
no to something so I can go make an appointment at the eye doctor and get new glasses ordered.
Yes.
I know. I should. We'll do that at some point before this year is out, because all the benefits run out at the end of December. So I need to make use of them. So I'm going to be booking massages and chiropractor appointments.
Just no work in December.
As we're just going to do all of that stuff
You're
in the next
already
4
adjusted.
weeks.
Just crack me again.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll come back tomorrow.
Oh, lame.
Yeah, so that's what's new. I'm trying to get over the sickness. I'm doing a keynote in 2 days on Thursday, and I'm still, as you can tell, having to turn and cough, and I just have this like thing in my throat I can't get rid of. So I need to get rid of that. I need to get rid of that by Thursday, or else I will be coughing into a microphone in a room full of people. So I went to the doctor today, got some stuff. We're going to try and get rid of it, but it's going to be fun. Look at your face.
Is that like 5 seconds late? Because I was like this.
It's
I
like
could see myself in the camera moving away from you.
15-second delay on the video
That's
that you're watching.
funny.
Yeah, that's what's new. I'm trying to get over a sickness, but other than that, not a lot. And working on my own online courses, which has been fun.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
We have to do my financial mastery and my leadership
We have to
course.
do more of yours, too.
Yes.
Lots of courses, lots of teaching.
Online courses.
Okay.
Awesome. Let's start.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Difficult conversations.
Oh, look at Mika today.
We have to show everyone else, too, yeah. Oh, too much reflection. There it is.
She's so cute. She sits like a little child. She sits like a little baby in a crib sometimes, too. So, topic is challenging conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, first of all, the sooner you do it, the better. Because if, like, for example, let's use that conversation we had about when I was, like, texting and emailing and, you know, over communicating, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably like a week or so of that. And then
it wasn't far.
You kind of let me know. You're like, hey, dude, you send me a lot of emails and a lot of text messages, and like, that's not really the package that you have. You know, like, that's more like this package. Do you want this package? And I'm like, no, that's too much money. So I was like, thanks for telling me. I don't want to take advantage of our friendship. And we figured out a way where I could like keep my questions on a list and then ask you once a week or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's been great, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's feelings were hurt. I was incredibly impressed with your straightforwardness. I love friends that give me authentic feedback because I want to be a good friend. Mm-hmm. But you didn't wait on that. Like, you didn't wait 3, 4, 5, 6 months and then finally be like, I can't stand this. You know, like,
fester,
don't want to work with this person anymore. You know, or like. I always tell the story about when I threw my husband's shoes down the stairs.
Okay. Tell the story.
Oh, it's
I don't
terrible. And we were doing this landmark course, this personal development course too. And it was all about like, it's not really, there's never anything really wrong with the other person. It's always something in you.
Right. Okay.
And so I think I wrote a blog about this a long time ago, actually, called It's Not About the Shoes. But every time I go into the porch, like, Tim is like the Tasmanian devil. He takes off his coveralls, his work hat, his whatever, his shoes, his boots. Like, I swear he like sprinkles them about so that there's something on every. Anyways, so one day after, like, usually I just put them all away. Every time I go in, I'm like, well, if I want a clean porch, I'll put the shoes away. But this one day I took them and I threw them down the stairs, all the shoes, all the way down the stairs. Bang, 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 bang. You could hear them all hitting the walls, and he can't. What's wrong? And then I just started crying. And I was just like, I feel like you don't respect me because you don't put your shoes away. And he's like, what? What do shoes have to do with respecting you? He's like, You're crazy. So anyways, if earlier, like maybe 5 years earlier, I had said,
5 years,
I feel like it's disrespectful when you leave your shoes out. He would have said, that's not what I mean when I leave my shoes out. I'm just lazy and I'm going to wear them again, so I'm going to leave them there.
Right.
So I make up all these stories when I wait to have a conversation, right? And I think that's very human, and I think that happens for all of us.
So much
So if you have something, go talk about it. Don't just let the stories fester, because it's not good.
Because you'll make up reasons for it. I saw someone posted something on social media today that's like, how come when someone sends me an email and I don't respond, it's because I'm busy, but if I send them an email and they don't respond, it's because they hate me.
What?
Right? It's
yeah.
Like in your head, you're like, it's perfectly fine that I don't respond. I'm busy. Give me 3 days. But when you send one and you don't get a response, you're like, it must be because they don't like me or something.
Sometimes.
We make up these stories.
The other thing, too, is if we're going to say just do it, like have the talk fast, we have to put a caveat on that.
Okay.
Don't do it if you're angry.
Not reactive, no.
Yeah, like if you're like, oh, I'm so mad, I got to go over there and tell him right now. Maybe just take a couple breaths, or like count backwards from 100, or have a nap first, because you never really want to go into a conversation angry, upset, hurt, resentful. Like, you have to chill before you go into that conversation.
Yeah.
And you got to have a goal for the conversation.
Okay.
I know
so
that probably
set
sounds
an
nerdy,
outcome.
but yeah, you have to be like, Lane, I'd like to have a conversation with you, and my goal is that we develop a new way of doing the podcast so that it gets put up every week. That's the goal. Yeah. So then together we talk and we decide that Laura's going to do it. Yeah. And now the conversation's over. Problem solved. Still friends, you know? Right. But then sometimes you get into these conversations, and Tim and I think I've read every single book on marriage, and we go to counseling together. He comes occasionally. It's usually just me, but because we don't want to get divorced, and we don't want to turn into like that old bickering couple, right? Right. But oh no, I lost my train of thought.
You read all the books on marriage.
Why is this live?
This is the beauty of it.
Tell me what you said. Tell me what you said, the last thing you said.
You wanted to not jump into it quickly. You wanted to not, you want to take time. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, shoot. It's gone. I'm so sorry. I think it had something to do with not sweating the small stuff, but it'll come back to me later. So, yeah, don't have the conversation when you're upset. Okay. Like, take a deep breath or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't had to have very many of the difficult conversations in business, but just because I'm still new enough to it and I haven't read the books about it. I think this plays into our character personas we've created for ourselves, where you've read probably all the books, you have a stack of articles to reference in our podcast, and I'm doing this very just intuition based on how I go into these conversations, and it's not based on some kind of HR best practices or any of that.
Let's talk about this. How do you go into these conversations?
So the only one that comes to mind, like as soon as you suggested the topic, was the one hire that I did too quickly and then had to let them go because it just wasn't the right fit for us. And that was like one of the hardest conversations I've ever had to have in business with someone I'd just hired.
It's the worst.
I gave them the month. I just knew that like there were things that were just weren't fitting with how we were doing stuff, and that I knew I could find someone better, and it was just not worth anyone's time, his or ours, to keep investing into this and going down this path. So having that conversation was the worst. So how I did it was kind of coming up with part of a script. You're like, okay, how am I going to say it? What are the things you say so that you're not just making up on the fly, and you actually have some phrases to go in with, so you can say it with some forethought and say it nicely, not hurt anyone's feelings. And then basically I waited until the last possible moment of when I had to say it, because I'm like, well, I need to tell them by the end of this day, but definitely waited until the last possible minute, because it's like, I don't want to do this. It's the worst.
You know, I think we could have a little debate around this. Okay. I learned a way to terminate people years ago that I have always stuck by. Although it seems very cold and very hard to do, I truly believe that it's what's best for the person and the company. So I always recommend that even if this person has a disciplinary file a mile thick, that you release someone with no cause, and that you give them severance.
Right.
Give them pay in lieu of time, like in lieu of notice, and give them severance. And make it very, very, very brief. Give them the piece of paper that says, today is your last day with our company. You're being released without cause. We are giving you pay in time in lieu of notice, as well as a generous severance package. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And then let's stand up, let's get the keys, let's get your stuff, and take care, and they leave. Because in the other case, in almost every case, if you don't keep it neat and clean and tied up like that, they start to say, why am I getting fired?
Right.
And you have to, again, tell them all the things that they've been doing wrong. Sometimes they'll beg for their job. Sometimes they'll swear and yell at you and throw things at you. Like, I find that it just preserves the dignity for the person being fired, and you just have to, like, short and painful, get it over with. To me, that's different than all these other challenging conversations. The termination conversation, that is all on its own. That's in a box, on a shelf, in a different closet, in a different room.
Okay.
But you're right for bringing that up, because that is the worst conversation ever of any business owner I know. Having to fire someone is just, it's the worst.
Yeah.
So on the opposite of firing people, the way to keep people around, we often have to have coaching conversations to make people better, so we don't have to fire them.
Yeah.
So have you had any of those that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few moments where things have, got, like, maybe productivity was not what it should be, or all of a sudden something just changed in attitude or energy or something, and these are all extremely minor variations from what it should be, but, like, it's never been in a case where it's like, man, something better change or I'm gonna have to let them go, but definitely just where it's like, man, I think something's a bit off and we need to have a conversation. One of the tools that I have that am really grateful for having done is whenever we hire someone, we have I buy this test, and it's based off a Myers Briggs personality test, and I get to know these people, but it's a workplace version of the Myers Briggs test that we pay for, so it's like a paid thing that you get, and every employee takes it when they're hired, and I get to know who they are and how they think
hired?
As soon as they're hired. As part of onboarding.
Before.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, interesting.
And I've seen a lot of that where they say, like, don't do it before because it's going to affect who you decide to hire, and you don't want to hire for, based on, well, we should have someone like this personality or something, because you can work with any type of personality. It's just knowing how to work with them. So we have those, and I can reach into them and find out what motivates people, how do they best respond to feedback. I can find out pretty clearly, like, what's lacking. And it might be, I'm not providing enough structure, or maybe I'm providing too much. Like, it depends on who it is. It could be one direction or the other too far. So using that has been really helpful. I can go back and review those. They have them for themselves, and they can also see everyone else's, and we all know each other's tests.
Are you saying that you review these instead of have a conversation with the person?
No, to prepare for that. So I know what to talk about. Because rather than coming in and being like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? I can look at these and I can get a pretty good idea of, I know what's happening. It's like, well, I forgot that something that's really important to them is having a lot of flexibility over what projects they work on. I know that because it's in there. And now I'm just like, I need to have that conversation with them and say, hey, I keep forgetting that, like, this is really important to you, and I feel like maybe I've not been providing that. Do we need to reassess that? And they're like, yeah, actually it would be nice if I had more of that. Okay, well, let's figure out how to get that done. So like you said, it's not like going to them and saying, all right, what's going on? Like, what's wrong with you that's causing this to happen? It's doing a lot of homework beforehand so that I can come in knowing it's probably something in what I'm providing them that's not working.
Oh my gosh, you just said the most amazing thing. Okay, so as a leader, every single time, as a leader, you have to find something to take responsibility for. If you're coaching a staff member, if your staff member is not performing to the level you need them to perform to, you can be doing something better.
Yeah.
And,
agreed, yeah.
It's a clear job description, clear KPIs, giving them feedback every month on their KPIs, role modeling better. Maybe you hired the wrong person, but in any case, if someone's not doing a great job, you can help them do it better.
Right.
And I love starting those kind of conversations with the word sorry. I always tell my clients, start with sorry. Because if you're my employee and I sit you down in the office, first of all, come in the office and close the door. That's never a good start, you know?
Yeah.
So I really like to start with, I'm sorry for waiting 2 weeks to talk to you about this. You know, I should have talked to you sooner. And I just want to talk to you about, you know, the way that you greet the clients. I'd really prefer for you to be more smiley and bubbly and energetic and really get up from your desk and get to the door and greet them really quickly. And then they're like, oh, okay. As opposed to if you sit somebody down and you're like, listen, the way that you do this isn't working. And here's the reasons why I hate it. And you better do it better or you're going to get written up next time.
Yeah.
That employee's like, screw you.
Yeah.
And they're like, they don't see you taking any accountability. They don't see you taking any responsibility, and their defensive walls are up, right?
Yeah.
So first way, start with sorry, defensive walls come down, and really just owning as a leader, your business is a reflection of your leadership. So obviously you can do something better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've talked a bit about conversations with employees, but that happens with conversations with clients. It can happen with, I know gym owners who need to have conversations with their members who are making an uncomfortable environment in their business. There's lots of conversations that happen among different people. And I think the other example I'd think of is our first local client when we established Lenero Media and we started offering this beyond the global brands that we service, but started doing it with local businesses. It was a short-lived contract, and when it was cut off, there was 95 reasons I could think of why that happened. That was all their fault, right? Where it's like, what? Like, yeah, I know why you want to cut this off, because you did this wrong, you did this wrong, and you did this wrong. And that is, I think, your first knee-jerk reaction. But I had to immediately step back and identify the 5 things that I knew I did wrong. So it doesn't matter if 95% is them. Take accountability for your 5%. Say yeah, these are the things that I did wrong in this, even if it is that unfairly balanced. And I'm certain it wasn't even close to that. But your first instinct is definitely to point at them and say, these are the things you're doing wrong. But it doesn't matter even if it's so unbalanced that it's 95-5. Look at your 5%, because that's all that you can really control. What is the things that I've done wrong, and come in being very cognizant of that piece.
And let's talk about progressive discipline, because I think a lot of business owners, some of my very favorite clients, they're just too sweet to ever say to an employee, I'm going to have to write you up, or I'm going to have to put this in your file. And I think that is a real missed opportunity, because my style of leadership and the style that I recommend in almost every industry is always be kind, supportive, loving, caring, like you are with your team. They know you have their back. They know they're appreciated, right? So you only ever have to be one lane. Be yourself, be kind, be supportive. But when you sit down with Sarah, you don't have a real Sarah, do you? Perfect. And you have a tool like her job description or a procedure, and you can sit down and you can be the same kind human that you always are with her, and you can just say, hey, do you remember this procedure that we talked about? Can you talk to me about how you think it's going with this? Yeah. And she's probably going to tell you, oh, shoot, I forgot about this procedure, because most people just put them in the manual on the shelf, right? Or she might say, well, I have a challenge with this part. I don't know how to do it. Right. And then you can teach her. And in some cases, actually a lot of cases, the person doing the job can improve this procedure and actually improve client satisfaction, lead conversion, all sorts of things. They have great ideas. You have to ask questions when you're trying to coach your staff. Yeah. Being a leader is not about knowing all the answers, and having a successful conversation to me looks like a lot more listening than talking. Right. Because if you ask the right questions, like what's in the way for you, or how can we make this better, or what's going on for you, you can find out so many things, and then you can just be there for them and improve things. And in the worst cases, when that kindness doesn't work, your next tool is keep being kind again, but now we're going to do a write-up, and we're going to put it in your file, and you're going to sign this. And this acknowledges that if you continue this behavior, disciplinary action up to and including termination may result. You know, you're going to get 3 letters for the same thing before you get fired. Like, you're getting every chance possible.
Yeah.
And make sure that it's clear during that conversation that you want to help them.
Right.
If you don't, just fire them.
Right.
Do not keep someone around.
Them,
yeah. If do not keep someone around if you're not willing to give 100% as a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're, no.
So what about the conversations that are not from a position of leader? Because I think even harder are the more even, right? Where it's not I lead them. It's more like peer to peer. So it's you to your clients, or you and I as being on a similar plane, or those kind of conversations that are not you to employees, where you are naturally in a leader position. Is there a different approach there?
I would like to think that I am the exact same person with whoever I'm talking to, but I understand what you mean, right? Because like thinking about somebody who works for me versus somebody I partner with on a joint venture,
exactly.
like
Partner would be
I'm
a good
not
one.
the boss of you sort of thing. I don't think my style changes too much. I think the thing I would ask of you would be different though, like I have no problem asking Laura to do things because I pay her to do things. I definitely change with my husband, like I might seem, confident, strong, bossy businesswoman during the day, but like I don't want to be that at home.
Yeah.
So I guess my personality changes a bit with different people.
So I feel like there's a little bit more risk of them being like, well, who are you? Like, it's almost whoever takes the initiative to have that conversation kind of becomes either the bigger person or the person who feels like it's more important to have this conversation.
Interesting. Like you're
and there's
controlling
almost this
the
like
octagon
ego thing where someone is like,
give me an example,
taking the power position on it.
So you took the power position on it when you talked to me about the communication?
No, I'm saying I think there could be a risk of that if not
think that.
done.
No, I think you did have it.
No.
You manipulate me.
If I could see it like among business partners, if you're very equally on equal plane, right? You're 50-50 partners on something, and you have to start a conversation about how, like a difficult one, not about difficult as far as the business needs some redirection. Of course, both of you need to solve that, but it's more difficult, like you and I are having this problem in our communication. It kind of, you become the person whoever leads that conversation kind of becomes the one that is the leader of that conversation. It becomes a difficult thing.
I disagree. I think you're the one with no armor.
Okay.
You're just out there, belly exposed.
Because you're the one that made yourself vulnerable.
You became vulnerable first. So hopefully the other person will become vulnerable too, and you can have a good conversation.
Right.
Because that's what's needed. Being in a power position or like being defensive or guarded, you're not going to get anywhere with that. Mm-hmm. But coming in, like a kitten or a puppy, like on their back with their belly exposed, like that's vulnerability to me. And that's the best metaphor for vulnerability I think ever, especially with our rescue dog, who obviously used to get treated really bad. Showing your belly, like opening yourself up, saying like, this is me, this is how I feel,
right,
and I want to talk.
So if you come in with that energy and attitude, then that is the way it would come across, is, hey, I'm experiencing this, and here's something I'm gonna expose to you that you don't even realize about how I'm experiencing things. Then I could see that. Because I think if it comes in being like, I think we should talk, it just becomes you're the one on the offense, and now they're on the defense, and that's where I worry about how those conversations can go. Where if it's employee-employer, I think it's expected that the employer is the one on the offense and the employee's on the defense, right? And that doesn't mean that that's a good thing, but it's no one's going to be like, well, who are you to tell me? I mean, like, well, I'm your boss.
In some cultures, I think that bosses have bent over backwards so much for employees to make them happy that some employees do think they wear the pants. But the thing is, I don't think we should ever be talking about hierarchy or wearing the pants or being in the power position. Like, we're all human beings. And I believe that we can have all human conversations regardless of where you're at.
Okay.
I think you need to have a common outcome. If people are ever not getting along or the conversation seems like it's not moving along or progressing, it's because you haven't identified the outcome you want from the conversation, or you haven't maybe gotten vulnerable. by apologizing for your part.
Yeah.
And I want to say something here, and I'm glad Brene Brown said it in her book. What was her last one that she wrote on vulnerability? Shoot. Sorry, but it's her most recent one. I think it's white with like blue and teal on it. But Brene Brown talks about vulnerability and leadership. And I was really hoping, and she did end up, that she would put in a caveat that says, do not use vulnerability or do not confuse vulnerability for manipulation. Right. We never want you know, those people who, like those bosses who will be like oversharing, like just talking too much, like something about their marriage or whatever.
Right.
And I'm just having a really bad day and they're like crying and stuff. So then they think it's okay to abuse their employees that day.
Drawing empathy. And
no, just vulnerability just means being authentic and just being open. And, it's scary as a leader because all of us think that as leaders or managers or directors or bosses, we have to know all the answers.
Right.
And if we don't, then we're going to look like a bad leader. But the truth is, when you pretend to know all the answers, you look like a bad leader.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with Google.
Most definitely.
Because you can't pretend to know everything, you know? No. But we can find it out.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest signs of strength is when someone's willing to admit where their limitations are. When there's like, no, I don't know the answer to that. And they're happy to say, they're happy to admit that and just be content in what they're strong in and not pretend to be okay at something they're not.
Yeah.
I think the words I don't know are highly underutilized and people are scared to say them.
Yeah, it's very humbling.
What else you got for us?
Just that how, you know, when I said earlier, make sure that you have the conversation soon. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to make sure that we reiterated it's because of all the stories that we make up that fester, you know, like the longer you leave that conversation, the more crazy thoughts you might be having that are totally nothing to do with what the other person's thinking. So that's why, like, I advocate to have the conversation sooner. Also, it's really bad for your health to be stressed or resentful or have pent up emotions, you know, like just thinking about something that's really bothering you and like giving you anxiety or stress or keeping you up at night. That's not good for your health. So make sure that you do just have the conversation as soon as you can. We talked about identifying a common goal or outcome.
Okay.
And the thing I think there that's really important is sometimes two people disagree on something and you cannot, like, you want to have the party, I don't want to have the party. Like, the grand opening, I don't want to have the grand opening. So you think that you're both like, it's either this or that.
Right. That's this dichotomy.
But it's not.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's look over here at an outcome that we both want. An
alternative one, yeah.
So maybe you're like, well, I want to get in front of 1,000 people. And I'm like, well, I want to keep the costs under this amount. And then maybe you're like, oh, well, let's do it in the park. Mm-hmm. You know, like if you just kind of step back and try to see the forest, you have the same goal. Mm-hmm. And then you can figure it out. But again, if you go in there, you know, guns blazing, on the defensive, and you aren't vulnerable, you don't apologize for your part, you're not going to get anywhere. Mm-hmm. And saying sorry is hard, especially when it's an assertive person basically demanding that you say sorry. You know, like I can think back to a few times, especially with new relationships, where you're just getting to know one another, and an assertive person did tell me, I really didn't like how you texted that to me.
Okay.
And all of me wanted to be like, well, too bad.
Yes.
But I was like, I'm sorry. Yeah. Next time I'll call you. You know, but like that was hard. That was hard to get out. It's like ego, you know? You really have to swallow your ego and just be vulnerable.
So what about the people that there are people who are not very good at having these conversations, but we have to have them with them, right? We don't get to pick who, like, we can't only have conversations with people who are good at having these conversations.
You sometimes just stay at your desk.
Sometimes you have to have conversations with people who are not good at having them, who are usually, because of insecurity and ego, not wanting to give up any of their position, right? Like it's an affront to them, and they're just going to stand their ground, and like they're strong in their position, they're not moving. Yeah. I mean, those conversations are tough, and I think there's a lot of people that are kind of like, it's not going to go anywhere. Do I bother? Like, do I even have this conversation because they're so hard to talk to? And I think when we're talking about when it's an employee, well, the conversation needs to happen or they need to leave. There's lots of these conversations are with someone who's not an employee, who you have to work with. You don't have a choice, whether it's Like if you're in a business that has a regulatory environment and there's someone you need to work with, or you have a partner who's a bigger shareholder than you, or you do have a boss or someone you report to. I mean, there's conversations that you can't remove the person from. What do we do in those where it's like, man, this person is going to be so hard to talk to. They're going to take offense to it. They're not going to see my point of view. They're just going to dig their heels in. I mean,
you have to change your expectations, because you usually get what you expect from people. So before you go into that conversation, you have to think of all the times that person was okay to talk to. You have to think of some way to empathize with that person. You have to try to get into their shoes and be like, they must be having a hard day.
Yeah.
And then try with that expectation and expect the best from them. Start with sorry for your part. Be kind and expect the best. And people so often, like almost 100% of the time, will live up or down to your expectations. And I think it's a really good idea too to have notes, not like full-on paragraphs that you're going to read out from your paper, but points, because you don't want to forget the important points. Yep. And the other thing I think that's important to remember is you don't have to tell them the answer. You should be asking them the answer, because if they come up with the answer, they're so much more bought in, right? And they feel so much more validated and important. I wanted to say too, listening, don't even think about having a conversation unless you're willing to really listen. And I define really listening as listening with the possibility of having your mind changed.
Yeah.
So if you and I are going to talk about some big issue, like let's say a political issue that we are on polar opposite sides of,
yeah,
there is no way I'm changing my mind.
Right.
There's no way you're changing your mind. This is something that is like entrenched in us. We will not budge. Do not have that conversation.
Right.
Because what's the point? That's just a fight. That's just a debate.
Yeah.
So things like that,
just
I think.
Yelling match. Yep.
And I hate when people say, "Oh, I'm just blunt," or "I'm just honest." It's like, no, you're just mean.
I just speak my mind. Usually is how it's phrased.
Just think a little before you talk.
Tell it how it is. I like that one.
Yeah.
It's usually another way of saying you're a jerk. But.
That's my thing. Listen. Don't have a conversation with me unless you're going to listen.
Right.
And vice versa. I catch myself all the time because we're both in positions of we're the experts, we're teaching, right? Mm-hmm. But if I don't ask my clients and listen, I could be teaching the completely wrong thing that day.
Yeah.
You know? And listening doesn't mean just with your ears. It means watching and perceiving. Like, look at their body language. Like, yeah, ask questions. Just listen.
All right.
Another good one that actually came from staff feedback is, this drives people nuts. So if you have a team of like 30 people and there's this one person that always does this one thing wrong, and everybody knows it's the one person, and everybody tattles on the one person, but you go to a staff meeting with all 30 people and the boss is like, "Hey, all of you guys, no one in particular, stop sticking your gum to the bottom of the chair at the front desk." People are like, "Come on, we know this is not for us. It's only about the one person," right? So don't have, I want to say, weak, pitiful group conversations.
Right.
If it is only a one-on-one thing. That said, I did have a client fight me on this the other day, and he was right. If people complain about something about another person and they don't know that you've addressed it,
right,
they might think that you just didn't listen to their feedback. So he does think in some cases that it's okay to tell the whole group, there have been some concerns, here's what it is, I agree, let's all make sure we don't do this. And then one last thing I wanted to say, and you did say, I did already tell you about the expectations thing, right? But over the years, we've gone to so many personal development seminars and read so many books, and my mom's a self-help junkie too. Like, we all love it. Tim too, thank goodness. But my dad, never really interested in that stuff. He's pretty old school, kind of gruff guy. Most of the time in my life, especially when my dirt bike was on top of me and I was in a creek crying, he would say things like, "What'd you learn?" Yeah. You know, he's a very tough sort of man.
Tough love guy.
But this one course we took encouraged us to have conversations with people with different expectations. Okay. So I sat down with my dad one summer and I asked him about his parents and how they died and what it was like when he was a kid. And it was like, it almost makes me want to cry right now, but like it was a side of my dad I didn't even know was in there. And you can't assume, like you just can't. When you said earlier, I think you're like, this isn't going to go anywhere. There's no point in having this conversation. Like, I think if we just assume the best, oftentimes we'll get better results. Yeah.
And as long as even if you go into that and you don't get better results, if it is everything that you thought it would be when you're thinking the worst of it, at least you've done your part.
Yeah.
Like you've really tried. You went in with a positive, you gave it the best shot rather than just coming in pessimistically and being like, well, I tried. But no, you genuinely went in and tried to give them the best shot of making it right. I mean, at least, I don't know, is that worth anything?
Yeah.
And at least I tried.
You know, I think the last thing I want to say on this topic is that you and I, or any two people in the world, have experienced life so differently, have seen things through such different lenses, and have developed such different conscious and subconscious beliefs. Is it unconscious or subconscious?
Subconscious.
I think is unconscious. Yeah. Well, that would be when you're unconscious.
When you're sleeping.
Maybe unconscious beliefs. Anyways, so the fact that I can say a sentence, get it from my brain into your brain, and you understand it at all ever is pretty magnificent. Because we have so many filters and lenses and different experiences, right?
And
so
all
just
the
be
context
patient.
of what that means, Just
be patient in your conversations. You'll get it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this all comes down to basically a compassion, where it's understanding that how they're experiencing it, how your words are going to come across when it hits their ears. It's trying to figure out what's, if you're seeing that there's something on their end that they're falling short on, trying to imagine and putting yourself in their position as why that might be happening. And it might be because of something you're doing. It's just
that's such
compassion.
A good point.
And also that where we do have very different perspectives, and we're all very much products of our environment. If there's someone that different than you and you're just like, why don't they get it? I think it's really good to be really aware of just thinking about how did they get to that. I mean, they're not irrational beings. Like, they somehow came to that position or that feeling rationally. So what did they go through? What did they experience, or what did they learn that got them there? Because they're not being irrational. They're not insane people. They got there thinking, yep, that's the right thing to do somehow. So if you just at least go in with that knowledge,
I love that.
I think that compassion's worth a lot.
Compassion is so...
Yeah.
There was this one exercise that we did in this workshop in Calgary where, like, you write out something you're really angry about. It's like, I'm angry because Tim leaves his shoes in the porch.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but there was like 4 steps to it. And then by the end of it, you get to what's really true is that I feel a lack of respect for myself, or something like that. Like really, and
it's like our 7 levels of why that we talked about a while ago. You uncovered the real truth of it.
And also to remember, like, this one story I have, it's going to take too long to tell, so I'll just tell a very short version. Like, someone thinks you hate them,
right,
but you just had a tummy ache.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it can escalate so quickly. No, you're always glaring at me. It's like, no, actually I have indigestion. I wasn't even thinking about you. That's the other thing. You're not that important. Don't think that people are thinking about you or talking about
people
you,
aren't thinking about you that much.
So my quick tip.
Okay, Kelly Ray's quick tip.
Pick one conversation, one person, one conversation you need to have, put it in your calendar, and have that conversation.
Do you let them know ahead of time?
Yeah.
You add them to your calendar?
Yeah,
Do they know it's
I would.
coming?
I would.
I feel like you're just going to build dread.
Well, then don't do that.
I guess it depends
on who it's with. What situation are you talking about? Are you talking about...
I don't know.
You're right. With an employee, I had a client do that, and it would like
we're going to talk next Friday.
Didn't sleep all weekend, and then the poor girl came in with like an essay. But yeah, no, I think if you're like, we need to have a talk tomorrow at 7, almost any human being's going to be like, well, just tell me now.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
anticipation
So
is not. Do you know
let's
what an
not give them
example of
heads
that
up.
is? You sent the email about what topic this should be about, but the subject of your email was just difficult conversations. And I'm like, I just saw that on my phone. I'm like, uh-oh, what does she want to talk about? And then I opened it and it was like, good topic for the podcast? I'm like, okay, yeah,
that's
sure.
good. Difficult conversations.
Like,
I'll tell you later.
What does Kelly Ray want to talk about? We need to
It's
have a
funny.
difficult conversation. Sorry, I hijacked your quick tip. Okay, schedule it, make it happen. Pick one and do it. That's it.
Calendar.
Yeah, the calendar got tied in. Okay, my quick tip to tie in a marketing quick tip that I think relates to this. We can talk about negative reviews as a way of having conversations you don't want to have. And that's someone else has started that conversation. They've come to you.
Behind the screen.
And yeah,
Not really come
absolutely,
to you.
with some anonymity.
Cowards.
Which emboldens people, that's the right word.
Emblazoned.
That's not a real
Look
word.
that up.
Emboldens people. I think negative reviews are something that I think people need to stop being afraid of. You definitely don't want to get them, but I've seen people who take any negative review, and there's a lot of platforms that you can't do it, but if you want, it is a word. Okay. Not the one I wanted.
But
people are going to delete reviews or hide them. There's lots of sites you can't do that with, obviously, like Google and Facebook or whatever, but they'll try and remove them, or even just comments. Like if you have a social post or an ad running or something, especially with ads, you'll get lots of negative comments on things, and people want to just delete them and remove them and making.
I don't want to know about them.
I don't think so, no.
Okay. They hurt my feelings.
Yeah, but all of those I think are great opportunities to go and respond and show people what you're capable of, how you respond when something doesn't go the way you planned it to.
Yeah, live your mission.
Mm-hmm.
Show people who you are with compassion, kindness, patience, everything.
Because part of it is speaking to the person that left that review or that comment, and you want to help that relationship. But mostly when it's online, it's for everyone else who's going to read it. That's who's getting the real benefit. They're seeing, wow, you responded to that really maturely, you took care of it, you made them understand that they were heard. Like, that's all really important, that you show people that you're capable of doing that. You hear often about how, like, it's really easy to be great at something when things are good. The real test is when it sucks, and who can actually still be a good person. And that's what negative reviews can show, because it's when all positive reviews, you go read all those and you're like, oh great, everyone enjoyed this service or product that they delivered. But you get a negative one and you can still maintain that.
Everyone reads the negative one.
Absolutely.
So your response to that negative one is more important than all of the good reviews.
So much, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to hijack your quick tip now. Don't try to defend yourself. Just apologize. Try to make it right. Offer a direct line to yourself, to make it right. But as a general rule, not just for responding to negative Google reviews, but in life, stop trying to make people wrong. It's like if you we learned this in Landmark too. It's like a sickening disease, wrong making. People are addicted to it. Watch for the next 24 hours. Just listen to conversations that people will be like, the mayor is wrong about this. Or they'll be like, the waitress took too long with my thing. Or especially in difficult conversations, it's like, well, no, you're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah.
And if you can just step back for a minute and realize how ridiculous that is.
Right.
You really want to make someone wrong? That's the point of the conversation? It's not the point of any conversation ever.
Right.
Or if it is, I don't want you to be my friend anyways.
That's definitely not what you want to do with negative reviews. No. Don't try and make them wrong.
No. Oh my gosh.
No.
Or secretly do it, act nice, but be like, but we did try everything and you never answered your phone, so screw you.
The passive aggressive is not
that.
a good method either. All right, that was episode 17 of Business Can Be Better. How to have challenging conversations. It's challenging to stay within a reasonable time.
That's so itchy. Find. I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to scratch.
So we'll be back next week, Tuesday, 7:15 p.m. Mountain Time with a new topic.
Maybe on Facebook this time?
We need to do one live. We need to do an in-person, people in the room.
Oh.
Or a call-in.
That's a great
guests.
idea.
We'll do something different coming up. Maybe for 20. We have 3 weeks till 20, episode 20. That's getting into December. We'll see. We want to do a different one, or maybe the first one that we do in January or something. We'll do some special one, do something a bit different. I think be fun.
Okay.
So everyone can follow me. I'm on Instagram what is it? The Real Lane Anderson. I'm on Twitter, Lane_Anderson, and LinkedIn. Just look me up, Lane Anderson. Where are you at?
On Instagram, at Kelly Ray Tamaki TMH. And on LinkedIn and Facebook, Kelly Ray Tamaki TMH, Business Coaching and Consulting.
All right. Thanks again for watching and listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.